Book Review, Kingdom Come, Part 3. I finished Chapter 6 of the book, and I am finding it hard to pick it up again. The leader of this millennial book excursion told us a few nights ago that he would like to wrap up all of the reading materials by the end of April. Now, I'm not a quick reader by any means, and I find nonfiction books even more of a challenge, especially with my intellectual prowess or lack thereof, but I don't think my brain can handle the challenge. It is a fascinating journey, and talking about it with other people has been a great blessing. Chapter 5 gets right down to the heart of what I've been wanting to talk about. As I said before, much of this makes a lot of sense to me. But, and I do mean but, I have told Mormons that the reasons they believe much of what they believe is because from a human perspective it makes sense. The gospel of Jesus Christ can be one of the most simple things to understand, and at the very same time be the most complicated thing our brain can wrap around. That is why we are called to love him, or what I might say as relate and understand him through our heart, mind, soul, and strength. We should not know or love or understand God through only our heart or feeling, for that leads to an experiential relationship that needs more experience to the point where people have to make things up. Only our minds are not enough, because that leads to a cold relationship where we deny what God may be doing supernaturally through other people, and so on and so forth. I told my friend that the millennial view I would come away with at the end would be the one that most amazes me about who God is. For I know that my God is an amazingly supernatural being, and I want to see that in all of this. But I also know that my God is a God of truth and logic, which means there are things that will make sense away from what would be considered supernatural. And in all this, I am thoroughly amazed at God's perfect balance of truth and love. I don't know why I constantly feel that I need to justify my ideas about this book, if that is indeed what I am doing. But these are complicated issues, and if my blog is about anything, it is about my thoughts and why I think them and how they develop. It is undeniably me. Mr. Storm starts this chapter called Problems with Premillennialism with several "you must necessarily believes" about what a premillennialist believes. You must necessarily believe that physical death will continue to exist beyond the time of Christ's second coming. You must necessarily believe that the natural creation will continue beyond the time of Christ's second coming to be subjected to the curse imposed by the fall of man. You must necessarily believe that the new heavens and the new earth will not be introduced until 1,000 years subsequent to the return of Christ. You must necessarily believe that unbelieving men and women will still have the opportunity to come to saving faith in Christ for at least 1,000 years subsequent to his return. You must necessarily believe that unbelievers will not be finally resurrected until at least 1,000 years subsequent to the return of Christ. You must necessarily believe that unbelievers will not be finally judged and cast into eternal punishment until at least 1,000 years subsequent to the return of Christ. Now, this is where I stopped writing, because I opened up Kingdom Come. I got that list from a website because I didn't want to type the whole thing, and I copied and pasted it. But I stopped writing there because the whole rest of the chapter, which was probably 25, 30, maybe even more pages, I don't know. The chapters are long in this book. Had lots of verses. Let me go get that actually. Hold on. See, so I got it right here. Chapter 5, let's see here. So, each one deals with a specific, seemingly contradictive Bible verses, and what has to do with those you must necessarily believe. So it goes through a crucial interpretive principle, which again has to do with hermeneutics. And then it comes to 1 Corinthians 15:22 through 28. Then comes the end, when he delivers the kingdom to God the Father after destroying every rule and every authority and power, for he must reign until he has put all his enemies under his feet. The last enemy to be destroyed is death, for God has put all things in subjection under his feet. But when it says all things are put in subjection, it is plain that he is accepted. It is plain that he is accepted who put all things in subjection under him. When all things are subjected to him, then the Son himself will also be subjected to him who put all things in subjection under him, that God may be all in all. The problem I've been having with reading all this and then wanting to talk about it is that there's a lot that I want to talk about and that I forget. And I comment on my intellectual prowess and or lack thereof, and that's where I get to this point. I think about, it has a premillennial view and an amillennial view chart, if you can see that. Yeah. And I look for lots of charts online, even if I type in an amillennial view chart, premillennial views. Anyway, 1 Corinthians 15:50 to 57, Romans 8:18 through 23, where did the dead go? 2 Peter 3:8 through 13, Matthew 25:31 to 46, 2 Thessalonians 1:5 and 10 through 10, John 5:28 through 29, an amillennial response to miscellaneous premillennial arguments. This chapter goes on. Other alleged purposes of an earthly millennial kingdom, premillennialism, and the early church. And then that chapter ends. So then we got chapter 6, which is who are the people of God, Israel, the church, and replacement theology. This one's really good to me as well, because I think a lot of it in here a premillennialist would have to agree with, I think, because in my theological education when I first became Christian, I understood that there was, and I can't remember, dispensationalism as compared to replacement theology, or possibly covenant theology, I think. I can't remember the distinction there, but replacement theology has to do with the church replacing Israel. And I think in chapter 6, Sam Storms more deals with the idea that the church is, true Jewishness is faith, not blood, not whoever it is, but that we aren't replacing anything, but we are grafted. We're grafted into the vine. So as faithful people, we are the true Jews. And so, again, that makes a lot of sense to me. I got near the end of this, and I just went to the end, read the conclusion. I really skipped the whole chapter of 7, the eschatology of Jesus, Matthew 24, and the Olivet Discourse. The eschatology of Jesus, Matthew 24, and the Olivet Discourse. Oh, there's 1 and 2. And so right now I'm on the book, well, I haven't even started. See, there's my bookmark. Chapter 9, Book of Acts, and the promise of Israel's restoration. having a hard time with this at this point because for me, I really, I look at the thickness of this book, and I've already written like 3 reviews, almost 3 reviews, some discussions and stuff about this, and I'm really having a hard time. So I may sum up this, and I was hoping that this could be more of an experiment with this vlogging, as you might say. Probably turn out to be stupid, which is most of my recordings anyway. So I'm going to edit this a little bit and post it in replacement of the 3rd review, and I may just wait to review this book at the end because I've still got the post-millennialist view as well as 2 books that deal with premillennialism, as well as some other things that people have suggested I read. This is the most nonfiction stuff I've read, even since like college or high school, because I read a lot of fiction back then, which is probably why I didn't do too hot. Anyway, thanks for listening, and see you later.